back to what I was saying, you love doing this thing where you go off about some nonsense that isn't what the original question was about.
Logic, yes, yeah, I know. I do occasionally,
logic
apply
entirely unrelated to what I was saying in the first place.
At least she had the guts to admit it.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate the...
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Cross Unit. I'm your host, Brother Maverick, and we have another one, guys. We have people in here trying to argue with conservatives, with conservative Christians, trying to equate babies to all kinds of frivolous nonsense as though it makes what they're doing to them during an abortion justifiable. And even though those of us with even a modicum of common sense know better, I want you guys to check this out because it never ceases to make me sad. It never ceases to infuriate me listening to these young kids trying to justify the taking of innocent unborn life. Let's go ahead and check this conversation out, and you guys will not believe what this little girl admits during her debate with Michael Knowles. So as usual, you will catch my thoughts a little in the middle and of course on the other side. Let's man up.
Do you believe that organ donation should be mandatory?
I do not.
You do not. Okay, so if you believe that even a dead person has the right to bodily autonomy, even if that dead person's organs could save up to 8 lives, and yet you also believe that women should be legally mandated to sacrifice their bodily autonomy in order to save the life of a fetus, by your own logic, a corpse has more right to bodily autonomy than a living, breathing woman.
Well, you imposed upon me a liberal view that I do not hold, which is that my views of abortion come from some sense of bodily autonomy. I'm not a huge autonomy guy to begin with. I don't think that I own my body. I think my body is sort of a gift, you know, and I have obligations to my creator. The reason that I don't support mandatory organ donation is not because of some liberal conception of autonomy or something. It's because that's not what your organs are for. Your organs are for you. Your lungs are to bring oxygen to your blood. Your heart is to pump blood around your body. Your liver is to take care of what I will probably do later on at the bar after this speech, and so on and so forth. My organs are not for you. Your organs are not for me. So you can give an organ donation, and that can be a lovely thing to do, but you aren't obligated for it because things are known largely by what they are for.
Okay. It sounded like you were just going to be anti-organ donation for a second. I was like, that's weird.
No. But I am against, going in and stealing people's organs. I think that would be quite wrong.
Stealing from a person who isn't alive, which gives
them
more
I think
right,
desecrating bodies is pretty bad,
right
or like digging up graves is bad too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you don't believe that withholding resources like life-saving organs, which you would die without if you have organ failure, if you don't believe that withholding resources like that means that you're killing a person, would you be pro cutting the umbilical cord rather than removing a fetus so that the fetus would no longer be able to grow without the nutrients it needs?
I think it would be wrong for a mother to kill her child. So I don't view my organs, say, as resources, as you've put it, in a kind of like materialist liberal way. I kind of think of them as my organs, and I think of my body as like my body, and I think of me as a person, not just a big sack of flesh that can be chopped up for the pleasure of some liberal technocrat.
This is one of these false equivalencies that wokesters love to constantly attempt to make, and it's cringy every single time they do it because they're trying to equate singular organs to an unborn child, right? That unborn child is a person. Whether you want to look at it as such or not, it doesn't matter what you want. The fact of the matter is, it's a person. Biologically speaking, the minute of conception, that is a person with their own DNA, their own forming organs. Now, the foundation of this little girl's argument is that a woman is being denied bodily autonomy by being denied an abortion. And yet, the very premise of the conception of that child, her bodily autonomy, was not being denied to her because she was doing whatever the hell she wanted, which led to the conception of that child. It's not about bodily autonomy, and it's not about a baby being equal to an organ. An organ is just part of a sentient human being, just like that baby is its own human being. It's amazing to me, though, how these women and anyone who's progressive or pro-choice never acknowledges the fact that a woman's autonomy is perfectly intact when she's hopping from bed to bed to bed. Then they don't have a problem with the woman's autonomy. But the moment that they're not able to take the life of an innocent unborn child because they don't want to be held accountable for that autonomy that had them hopping bed to bed to bed, then all of a sudden they have a problem with that. You see, when you're doing the things that you're doing, you're told from very early on in your life that that action can result in the conception of a child. And now, because people can't go out and just all willy-nilly take the lives of innocent, unborn, defenseless babies anymore, they're questioning autonomy. So they're not worried about a woman's autonomy when they're jumping from bed to bed, but they are worried about it when they can't commit a murder. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Call me old-fashioned, I guess. But then you turn to this example and you say, well, okay, what about cutting the umbilical cord eventually you do cut the umbilical cord when the baby comes out, but what about cutting the umbilical cord or otherwise killing the baby? I think that would be quite wrong to do, because your baby is not for your killing. Your baby is not justifying some kind of murder. That was the topic of our discussion tonight. And furthermore, a woman's womb, which is another organ that you haven't brought up, has a purpose too. And the purpose of the woman's womb is to grow a baby. And the baby is not just a clump of cells or a parasite or any other dehumanizing way that the liberals talk about it. The baby is your baby. And when mothers kill their babies, that's contrary to reason and contrary to nature.
So back to what I was saying, you love doing this thing where you go off about some nonsense that isn't what the original question was about.
Logic, yes, yeah, I know. I do occasionally,
logic
apply that.
Entirely unrelated to what I was saying in the first place.
At least she had the guts to tell the truth. Logic is entirely unrelated to what I was saying in the first place. Yeah, no crap. There's nothing in the pro-choice argument that's even remotely logical. You try to talk about a child's earliest memories. You try to talk about sentience. You try to talk about heartbeat, about brainwaves. You try to talk about organs and all this other garbage that has nothing to do with the fact that you think that calling it a fetus instead of a child is taking its life. But at least she had the courage to admit that the pro-choice stance is completely illogical. I give her credit because most people don't even have the guts to admit that.
But
what were you saying? Perhaps I misunderstood. I thought I understood.
You misunderstood. So withholding resources.
Right. Yeah, I suppose
without
I just don't.
Someone will die.
Yeah,
when
I
you
suppose
have organ failure, not having an organ donor kills you. Surprise. So withholding resources from them, that isn't killing, that isn't wrong. But withholding resources from a growing fetus, somehow that's different. And the way
as I
you
tried to
make that leap, so I'm getting confused there.
You are getting confused. As I tried to explain, you are beginning with a premise that all of our organs are just undifferentiated resources to which any of us might be entitled. And that's a novel view. It's a view held by, I guess, some rather extreme liberals or materialists, but it's not a view held by me. I don't think that it's all just undifferentiated flesh. I think that things like organs have both form and matter. So there's the matter, there's the flesh, there's the stuff, but then there's the form, which tells you about what that thing is. And so my liver might look a lot like your liver, but they're different livers. One's mine, for instance, and one is yours. So you don't have a right to mine, and I don't have a right to yours, because your liver is for you, and my liver is for me. And we all know this, and we all act that way. That's why you're not coming up here and attacking me and ripping my kidneys out and selling it on a market in Wuhan or something like that. But we pretend that we don't believe these things because it helps to advance an argument which is totally indefensible and unnatural, namely that we ought to kill a baby or something like that.
Yep.
So your organs are for you and you alone. You get to decide what to do with them. But a woman doesn't get that choice about her womb, about her ovaries.
Well, the baby
about
is
her
not
uterus.
an organ of
No,
hers. The
so
baby is an
you
individual
get to make
human
choices
being.
about your internal organs, but a living, breathing woman does not.
Well,
okay, I understand.
No,
Thank
I don't think you do understand, because I don't think you understand very well at all, unfortunately, because you're suggesting that the baby is an organ of the woman, which is preposterous, obviously. Yep. You know, the baby is differentiated from organs by its DNA, by how it will develop, by, I don't think she's listening to the rest of my answer. Matt!
Didn't even know his name.
It's not Smokey Matt, not Smokey Ben, not Smokey Candace.
So real quick, how does the Bible apply? What does God think about this conversation? Psalm 139:13 and 14 tells you clearly, "For you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made." Now that verse alone dismantles the nonsense we just heard. A baby in the womb isn't some random collection of tissue. I don't care what anybody wants to say about it. It's a life, and it's a life that God himself designed. Yet somehow, in the twisted logic of pro-abortion activists, a corpse has more rights than a living child. Now, make that make sense for me. And let's talk about that bodily autonomy argument that she kept trying to allude to without really making the dots connect ever. You've got people arguing that we shouldn't force organ donation because your organs are yours. Fair enough, right? Even after you die, your organs are yours. But those same people turn around and say that a baby, a completely separate human being with its own DNA, heartbeat, and potential can be killed in the name of bodily autonomy. So which is it? Does bodily autonomy end at death, or does it magically only apply when it's convenient for abortion activists? Because the logic here is completely broken, and I alluded to that earlier on in the video too. Even the young woman in the conversation admitted that nothing about her stance was logical. But see, that's the trick, isn't it? They love throwing out these false comparisons. A fetus is like an organ. Cutting the umbilical cord is just withholding resources, or whatever nonsense they just so happen to come up with that day. But none of it holds up. A kidney is a kidney. It's an organ. A baby is a completely separate person. Cutting off food to an adult doesn't change the fact that they were already alive and developed. A fetus is actively growing and developing because it's supposed to. It's supposed to be there. The womb isn't a guest house. It's the baby's home. That's the natural environment of the child who is developing during gestation. The same way that oxygen is our natural environment. The fact that we even have to have this conversation is completely wild to me. And here's the real kicker. They don't even believe their own argument, and I wish Michael would have brought this up. If a pregnant woman is murdered, they'll charge the killer with a double homicide, and it's happened a lot in the history of America. If a premature baby is born, the same people who say that a fetus is just a clump of cells will fight tooth and nail to keep that baby alive in the NICU. So they all know it's a lie, they just don't care. They don't want to be responsible for their own actions. Consequences is something that's foreign to these people. But at the end of the day, this isn't about logic. It's about convenience. It's about people wanting to justify killing their own offspring without having to face the truth. And the truth is, guys, abortion is the taking of an innocent life. Period. I don't care what anybody says. You can do all the mental gymnastics you want, but the reality of it doesn't change. Isaiah 5:20 warns us sternly. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. And that's exactly what's happening here. People have taken something as clear-cut as the sanctity of life and twisted it into a so-called debate. But here's the thing, guys. God's word isn't up for debate. It never was. It's the truth. And that truth doesn't change just because modern society finds it inconvenient. So here's the bottom line. A corpse isn't more valuable than a baby. A fetus isn't an organ, and no amount of word games will ever justify killing a child. You can ignore it, you can argue against it, and you can even pretend like it's not true. But I promise and guarantee you this. One day, you're going to answer to the one who created that life in the first place. And I guarantee you, I didn't know will not be a valid excuse. Hey guys, I pray to God that you liked the video, and if you did, please type amen in the comment section if you agree, and if you don't, go ahead and leave those comments also. Just keep it respectful. As always, please don't forget to like the video, hit the sub button, share the video, and smash that bell for event notifications, guys, so you never miss a new video. If you love what you see and you want to become a channel sponsor, you can hit that join button where the sponsorship trailer will explain the different tier options and the perks that you'll get as a result of joining each individual plan. Also, don't forget to check out our merch store, as I recently added a ton of new merchandise to the store, and I would love to see nothing more than to see some of you guys wearing the Cross Unit logo out there in the wild. Lastly, the link to my Buy Me a Coffee is there as well. Of course, you're not required to do any of that. Just having you here with me is more than enough, and I am extremely grateful to God for your fellowship. As always, guys, be safe, be good, and be blessed. Remember that Jesus is King and the literal only way to heaven. So for those of you who haven't started a relationship with him yet, please consider it, because when he comes back for his people, it's gonna happen just like this.